Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Chee-Tash. My name is Chris, and today we're going to be going over the discussion questions from Chapter 1, Part 2 of 1984 by George Orwell. So I say we just get things popping and go right to the first question that we posed. And again, these questions are going to be at the very end of our recaps of the chapter. So if you want to know where to get these questions, they are in the description of the recap episodes, the full episodes. And with that, we have the first question here. Kids sound like they are involved at an early age in party activities. What is their role? Why do you think they are involved in the party? So this question comes about from our experience, or Winston's experience with the Parsons family that lives on the same floor that he does. There's Mr. and Mrs. Parsons. He works with the husband, Tom Parsons, or they work in the same building at they both work at the Ministry of Truth. When he's at the Parsons residence fixing the sink, because the sink gets clogged and Mrs. Parsons asks him to come over, he meets the kids, the Parsons kids. And the kids are roughhousing, playing, running around the house like normal kids do, except that they start to call Winston some interesting things. They'll call him a thought criminal. They called him a Eurasian spy. And you could kind of think that, hey, they're just playing. It's kind of like kids playing cops and robbers, right? They're just running around the house doing what it is that kids do. They got to let out that energy. But reading Winston's response to that, he gets a little irked by it. You can tell that he is kind of concerned by what they are saying. It's almost as if the kids aren't joking. They really believe in what they are saying in a way. Like they're playing, but like not really, is kind of the impression that you get. Later on, you learn that, hey, Tom Parsons was a part of the Spies. From what I gather, the Spies is an organization within the party that does exactly what the name says it does. They spy on the people of Oceania for the party, where the party is not able to monitor those same activities. And the spies are mostly kids. So that's why Winston notes that the kids are dressed up as spies. They're wearing, oh gosh, I think it was gray. It was like gray and then like a red scarf, something like that. I can go to the page and check really quick. Uniforms, red neckerchiefs, blue shorts, gray shirts. So it seems like mostly kids are spies. So they are involved in the party at an early age. And if you were Big Brother, it kind of makes sense. Because kids, you can kind of bring them in a lot easier. They're probably a little bit easier to convince. You know, as an adult, like somebody tells me some stuff as an adult, like sure, sometimes I'll say, okay, cool, and I'll listen intently and I won't disagree. But then when I go home, I'm thinking about it like, I don't think that's right. And I start researching on my own. Whereas like a kid, they're going to take everything that you give them for the most part compared to adults. So if you can get kids into the party at that early of an age and believe in all the stuff of the party, then they become your best recruiters and your best employees because they grow up in the system. And you give them things like it's stated that within the spies, like kids, they sing songs. It seems like they have a good time. They take hikes. You know, it just seems like they have a fun time in there, in this organization. And it seems like the time that they would have in the organization is much better than the time that they would have in the victory mansions when they're at home, when they're not at school and stuff, if they're even at school. We haven't heard anything mentioned about that yet. So they learn to have a love of Big Brother that's only going to strengthen as they age. I don't think it'll decrease. So if you can get them in early, they become your best, most vocal advocates. And this is kind of the last bullet point that I note here, a point that Seth Godin, I remember reading this guy, Seth Godin, big marketing guy. He talks about guerrilla marketing in an age where there's so much noise, cell phones, computers, technology, television, radio. Your best marketing is going to be other people telling other people. I've bought stuff most of the time because other people have told me about it, not because I see an advertisement. Not saying that doesn't happen either, but if somebody else tells me, hey, I really like something, I'll go buy it. I'm more likely to go buy it or go watch it. It's kind of the same sense here. If I have people that grew up in the party system telling me all the benefits of the party versus like Big Brother always watching over you, the posters everywhere, etc., I'm willing to bet that the people going out for the party and doing that guerrilla marketing are going to get more people buying in. And not that Big Brother has to do a lot of marketing. It seems like everybody's on the same page for the most part. Maybe not Winston, maybe not O'Brien, but kids are going to be your strongest advocates, it seems like. So their role as a spy, they're going to turn people in, because who's going to think that a kid would do that? It's like the person you would least expect, a little kid, right? You would expect somebody like a typical spy, conceals himself, super secretive, dresses in black. I'm thinking about the guy from the neighborhood watch sign, basically. The person you would least expect to turn you in or listen in on your conversations would be the kid. So kind of smart if you're on the side of Big Brother, if you're Big Brother here. Let's go to the second question. Where do you think the money of Oceania goes to? Because it does not seem like it is going to the infrastructure. What do I mean by that? Well, we get more of a glimpse of these victory mansions in part 2 here, where Winston is kind of describing the state of these mansions. I think it was towards the beginning of part 2. Hold on, let me double check for you guys. Yeah, victory mansions were old flats built in 1930 or thereabouts and were falling to pieces. Plaster flaked constantly from the ceilings and walls, pipes burst, roofs leaked. Heating system was usually running at half steam. Repairs sometimes could take 2 years. If you guys remember, Chapter 1, Winston talks about the lack of electricity. That's why he couldn't take the lift up to his floor. He had to take the stairs. He also mentions on page 26 about a chocolate ration. I don't know why you're eating chocolate. It's kind of not the healthiest thing. I mean, processed candy chocolate, but like dark chocolate's not bad. Maybe. In moderation. Everything in moderation. So you're getting the glimpse here that stuff doesn't get fixed. Stuff is not being utilized at 100% capacity. So it's like, where's all this capacity going? Where's all the money going? And I can tell you, it's probably going to the party, just from my perspective here. And the main evidence I have of that is to compare the look of the victory mansions to the look of the Ministry of Truth, which Winston described back in Chapter 1, Part 1, as being huge, towering over the landscape. It was like a pearl white. Here, I can find here. Kilometer away, the Ministry of Truth, his place of work, towered vast and white above the grimy landscape. And I think that it's a simple description. And all it is just that one sentence, but I think it says it all. Vast and white versus grimy and rundown landscape. And I think that's where the money is going. It's going to the party for what the party does with it. And it doesn't seem like the party is sharing that, just from my perspective. Things aren't getting repaired. There's a chocolate ration. Electricity is being rationed too, it seems like, especially on the hate week it's mentioned, which it seems like they are right now in hate week. That's why the electricity was not as available. And then I asked this other question here. How do you think Oceania makes money? Right? And I'll mention this other thing too. They are in a war with Eurasia, I believe. It seems like they are. And they've hanged like Eurasian prisoners and spies. They say they do that in chapter 1, part 2. They have hangings in like the middle of the city or what have you. So probably a lot of money is going to that too, to the war effort. But how does Oceania make money? That's what I'm wondering here. And not that I can answer this right now, but that's what I'm starting to wonder is what Winston works at the Ministry of Truth. What is the Ministry of Truth selling? Is the Ministry of Truth making money? How does Winston get paid? Right? Because he goes to buy the diary, so he has some sort of money. Right? But the products that they output at the Ministry of Truth, where does that get sold? How does Oceania make money? And that's a question we're going to have to think about and make sure that we come back to at another time. Next question here. Winston seems unfazed by continuing to write in his diary. Does he have a plan? Is he a man with nothing to lose? Explain. So this kind of stems from something we read earlier in chapter 1, part 1. In part 2, Winston writes a little more in his diary. Even at the behest of, even though he's already a marked man, we've talked about this, he's got a target on his back. He's bought a diary. That's a no-no. He's written in the diary. That's a no-no. He writes down with Big Brother in the diary. That's like 3 strikes and you're out. But really, all it took was the 1 strike. He says that just by buying the diary, he's like the thought police can come after him. Right, but we see on page 8 that he had plans. He's kind of planned this all out. He had steps and a plan to write in the diary for weeks, he says. Remember, when he gets ready to actually put pen to paper, he's super anxious. His ulcer acts up. He's kind of like, I just got to do this. And then he finally does it. And he splashes down just like a bunch of, he calls it rubbish. He kind of details his the night previous of the diary entry. So even after that, he writes, and he writes down with Big Brother. Even after writing down with Big Brother, he writes a little bit more in part 2. Even after that, he's got to get ready to go to work. And he, instead of tearing out the pages, because he talks about possibly tearing out the pages, making sure, just erasing it from memory, basically, throw the pages away. Hopefully it doesn't get discovered, right? But he uses the words, it was useless. When he hears the knock at the door and he kind of thinks like, oh gosh, could that be the thought police? It ends up being Mrs. Parsons, thank God. But when he goes to answer the door, he doesn't put away his diary. He leaves it wide open with the words down with Big Brother, just wide open, right there on the counter. Can you think about if it was somebody from the party coming in? So to me, it seems like from those actions, he doesn't care. He's perfectly fine with the actions he's taken. And I think he realizes all of this and he's all in. He's all in and he knows that there's no going back from this. Another case in point is that he doesn't close the diary because he's afraid of smudging the words from the fresh ink of the pen, which then he has to coincidentally go and wash off. So, no, he wants to let those words sit. He doesn't want to hide them. This is it. There's no going back from this. So I think he kind of is acting like a man with nothing to lose. And I think he does have a plan. And he's unfazed because he knows that this is what he wants to do. Next question. And the last question, who would want to discover Winston's diary but not outright take it? So I'm just going to go out on a limb. I mean, to put it simply, the party or Big Brother. The thought police. Everything all those things encompassing basically Big Brother / the party. But Winston talks about this at the end of part 2. Let me see if I can find it. No. This is on page 29. It was quite useless to think of hiding it, but he could at least make sure whether or not its existence had been discovered. But who would want to discover it, but not outright take it? See, that's the weird thing. And then I kind of think about it like this. If I'm thinking like the party, you discover Winston's diary, right? And you take it, you arrest him, you put him in a forced labor camp. Okay, you took down one guy. Okay. But if anybody here has watched the series on HBO, The Wire, can't recommend it more highly enough. It's a phenomenal show. I'm pretty sure in The Wire, they used wiretaps to basically build up a case against the Barksdale crew, this like drug kingpin, Avon Barksdale, Stringer Bell, and like that whole cartel, basically. Not a cartel, but a gang, I guess you would call them, drug gang in Baltimore. And you can see as they build up their case, they don't make any huge arrests, really, because they're going after the head honcho, Avon Barksdale, Stringer Bell. So they do find incriminating stuff against some of the lower level people on the streets, right? But they never really just crack down and just arrest everybody, because they have a goal in mind of catching. It's more about the people higher up than about the lower level people on the corners. So it's kind of the same sense here. Yeah, if you discover the diary and just arrest the one guy, sure, I mean, it does something maybe, but those ideas that Winston espoused in his diary could have spread, right? So if you were smart, you find out if Winston has the diary, you keep letting him write in it, and then you just monitor his activities to see who else he is sharing these ideas with. And does it all lead back to like a Goldstein, like the guy who led the counter-revolutionary activities, the people, the guy who people were shouting crazy stuff at the 2 Minutes of Hate? He's shown at the beginning of every 2 Minutes of Hate, it seems like. People do not like him. So if you can let these ideas spread, not arrest Winston, and kind of let Winston lead you to the Goldstein, and then you can cut off this counter-revolution at the head. But instead, you arrest this one guy, the counter-revolution maybe still grows. So those are my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think. That was the end of the slide. End of the slideshow. Thank you guys so much for listening this far. Next episode, we are going to do Chapter 1, Part 3. Yeah, Chapter 1, Part 3, which I think is pages 30 through 38, but whatever edition you have, we are doing Part 3 of Chapter 1. Relatively short part, but a really important part. I actually finished reading it last night, And we're going to learn a lot in this chapter too. So thank you guys so much. Let me know what you answered for these discussion questions. Let me know if you have any questions. Please like and subscribe, and check out the blog post as well, where we talk a little bit more about the kids, the Parsons kids. And until next time, my name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. Take care.